System alert. Daily objective. Bathe with owner. Luna stared at the system prompt, her cat ears turning a deep shade of crimson. Inside the bathroom, Ethan was in the middle of a shower. The door was suddenly pushed open. "Owner," she yelled, squeezing her eyes shut and holding up a loofah. "I am here to scrub your back." Through the steam, Ethan froze. "Luna, that's my pair of boxers you're holding. Final objective. Achieve biological union." Luna stared at the new prompt, her claws trembling. That night, beneath a meteor shower, she drunkenly tackled Ethan. "Owner," she whispered, her voice cracking, "if we don't do this, I'm going to disappear." The rain was a classic Seattle drizzle, relentless and bone-chilling. Ethan Cole hunched under his umbrella, power walking the last few blocks home. As a programmer at Ether Corp, pulling crunch hours until midnight was just another Tuesday. He needed the crick in his neck, promising himself a full 8 hours of sleep. Meow. A faint cry cut through the sound of the rain. Ethan stopped, his head tilting. Tucked into a soggy cardboard box by the curb was a small black cat, drenched and shivering. Its amber eyes glittered in the dim streetlight. "Hey there, little guy. What are you doing out here?" Ethan crouched down. The cat immediately flinched back, but one of its hind legs seemed injured, its movement clumsy. Ethan sighed. He'd always been a sucker for cats, especially one this pathetic. He shrugged off his waterproof jacket, approaching slowly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The black cat watched him for a few seconds, then its defensive posture softened. It took a hesitant step forward and rubbed its head against his hand. "There you go." Ethan smiled, wrapping the small, wet creature in his jacket. "Let's get you home." Back in his apartment, Ethan found a towel and gently dried the cat, then examined its leg. Just a minor scrape. Thankfully, he cleaned it with a first aid wipe and warmed a small bowl of milk. "Here, this should warm you up." The cat lapped at the milk gracefully, occasionally looking up at him with an expression Ethan couldn't quite decipher. "I'll call you." "Midnight," Ethan decided, scratching under its chin. The cat purred, a deep, rumbling sound. "You can crash in the living room for tonight. We'll get you to a vet in the morning." After a quick shower, Ethan fell into bed and was asleep almost instantly. He had a strange dream. The little black cat had transformed into a teenage girl with cat ears and a tail, and she was staring at him with those same intense amber eyes. Meow. A real meow jolted Ethan from his dream. He blinked his eyes open, realizing the sun was already up. A far more shocking reality was lying next to him in his bed. A girl. "Good morning, owner," the girl chirped. She had long, jet black hair, 2 fuzzy cat ears perched on top, and a sleek black tail that was swishing happily back and forth. She propped herself up on her elbows, the collar of her pajama top slipping to reveal a delicate collarbone. Ethan's brain blue-screened. Who are you? What are you doing in my bed?" He scrambled backward, nearly tumbling onto the floor. The girl tilted her head, her ears twitching. "You don't recognize me, owner? It's me, Midnight." She leaned in close, her nose almost touching his. "You brought me home last night." Ethan finally noticed that her eyes were identical to the cat's, luminous amber irises that seemed to glow in the morning light. "Wait, you're the cat. That's impossible." He pinched his own cheek, confirming he wasn't still dreaming. "Technically, my name is Luna, and I'm from the planet Felinia, the girl Luna," announced, puffing out her chest proudly. "I was stuck in my feline form for reasons. Thank you for rescuing me, my kind owner." While Ethan's brain struggled to process this, Luna suddenly threw her arms around him. "And now I must repay your kindness. From this day forward, I am your exclusive Catgirl." Her soft body was pressed against his, and he could smell a faint, sweet scent like vanilla and milk. His face flushed beet red. "Wait, just let go of me for a second." System alert. Romance system activated. A robotic voice echoed in Luna's mind. Objective 1. Share breakfast with the target and feed him 1 bite. Reward plus 10 affinity points. Luna's eyes lit up. She released Ethan and hopped out of bed. "You must be hungry, owner. I'll go make breakfast." Before Ethan could react, she darted out of the bedroom, her tail swishing with excitement. He sat there, stunned, seriously wondering if the burnout had finally caused a psychotic break. 10 minutes later, Ethan warily emerged from his room to find the table set with scrambled eggs, toast, and a glass of hot milk. It actually looked professionally done. "Please sit." Luna pulled out a chair for him, then picked up a piece of toast. "Open wide. I can feed myself, thanks," Ethan said, reaching for the toast. But Luna was insistent, shaking her head. "No, you took care of me last night, so today I'm taking care of you." Her cat ears drooped, and her eyes got watery. "Don't you like my breakfast, owner?" That pathetic look inexplicably melted his resolve. With a sigh, he opened his mouth and accepted the bite of toast. Objective 1 complete. Affinity plus 10. Current affinity, 10 out of 100. The system prompt made Luna's tail wag. "You're the best, owner." She cut off a piece of egg with a fork. "Here comes the airplane." And so, Ethan endured the most awkward breakfast of his life, being fed bite by a strange girl who claimed to be a cat from another planet. The weirdest part, he didn't hate it. "So, you really turned from a cat?" he finally asked after the meal. Luna nodded, her ears twitching. "Yeah, I came to Earth for a mission, but I ran out of energy and got stuck in my cat form. Thanks to you, I was able to transform back." "And what are you planning to do now?" Ethan asked cautiously. "Stick with you and repay my debt, of course." Luna said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. At the same time, the system's next objective popped into her head. Objective 2. Go shopping with the target and hold his hand for at least 10 minutes. Reward, plus 15 affinity points. Ethan rubbed his temples. "That's really not appropriate. You're a young woman. Are you trying to get rid of me?" Luna's eyes immediately filled with tears, and her tail drooped. I can do chores. I can cook. I can even be a foot warmer. It's not about that." Ethan looked at the teary-eyed Catgirl and felt a pang of guilt. "Okay, fine. You can stay temporarily, but we have to set some ground rules." Luna's tail shot straight up. "Anything you say, owner." Rule 1. No coming into my bedroom without permission. Rule 2. No. Overly familiar physical contact. Rule 3. As soon as you figure out how to get home, you go. Luna nodded obediently on the surface, but her mind was already scheming. "Hold hands for 10 minutes. I have to get him to go out with me." "So, owner, any plans for today?" she asked, batting her eyelashes. "It's Saturday. I was gonna run some errands, pick up some groceries." "I'll come with you." Luna shot her hand up. "I'm still new to this human world. You can show me around." Ethan looked at her hopeful expression and caved again. "Fine, but you have to change. You can't go out in my pajamas." "I don't have any other clothes," Luna said, tugging at the oversized sleep shirt. Ethan rummaged through his closet and found a clean t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. "Here, wear these for now. We'll buy you something." Luna took the clothes and immediately started unbuttoning the pajama top. "Whoa, use the bathroom." Ethan yelped, spinning around, his ears burning. Is my owner shy?" Luna giggled. "You weren't shy last night when you were rubbing my tummy." "That was different." Ethan practically fled into his bedroom. "We're leaving in 10. Watching his flustered retreat, Luna smiled. "System, my target is adorable. Warning, target affinity is only 15. The host is advised to focus on the mission." The system replied coldly. At the mall, Ethan was on edge. Even in his baggy clothes, Luna's figure was obvious, not to mention the cat ears and tail she was trying to hide. She'd tucked her tail into the sweatpants and pulled a beanie over her ears, but he could still see them twitching. "Owner, is this one cute?" Luna held a sundress up to herself. "Yeah, it's nice," Ethan replied distractedly, scanning the area. A few people were already giving his cute cosplayer companion curious looks. "I'm gonna go try it on," she said, skipping to the fitting room. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding and pulled out his phone to check his work Slack. Suddenly, a yelp came from the fitting room. "Owner, help!" Ethan rushed over. "What's wrong?" The door cracked open and Luna peered out, her face a mask of misery. "The zipper. It's caught on my tail." Ethan's face went scarlet. You can handle it, but it really hurts." She whimpered, tears welling in her eyes. "Please, owner, just a little help." Under the suspicious gaze of the sales associate, Ethan squeezed into the tiny fitting room. Luna stood with her back to him. The dress's zipper snagged right at the base of her tail. "Don't move," Ethan said, his hands trembling as he tried to work the zipper free. doing his best not to touch her skin. But his fingertips inevitably brushed against her smooth back, and she shivered. "Your hands are so warm, owner," she whispered. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He finally freed the zipper. "There, get changed." He practically bolted from the fitting room. Objective 2 progress, 50%. The host is advised to continue, the system noted. Luna emerged from the dressing room, now wearing the new sundress. It seemed just going out wasn't enough. She had to find a way to hold his hand. "Owner, I want to get boba tea," she said, pointing to a shop across the way. Ethan nodded. "Okay, you go ahead. I'll wait here. Aren't you coming with me?" Luna tugged on his sleeve. I'm scared of crowds." With a sigh, Ethan followed her. While they were in line, Luna suddenly gasped, pretending to stumble. Ethan instinctively grabbed her hand to steady her. "Be careful," he grumbled. Luna seized the opportunity, lacing her fingers with his. "It's so crowded. Can you hold my hand so I don't get lost?" Her small, soft hand was in his. Ethan froze for a second, but found himself unable to pull away. Her hand was cool to the touch, delicate yet firm. Just for a minute," he stammered, his pulse quickening. Objective 2 complete. Affinity plus 15. Current affinity. 25 out of 100. Luna cheered internally. After getting their drinks, Luna showed no intention of letting go. Ethan tried to pull his hand back, but she just squeezed tighter. Rule number 2. He reminded her. "Hand-holding isn't overly familiar, is it?" she asked, blinking innocently. "Besides, your hand is so warm. I don't want to let go." Ethan was speechless. He let her keep holding his hand all the way back to the car. Strangely, it didn't feel wrong. It felt nice. Back home, Ethan collapsed on the sofa, more exhausted than after a 12-hour coding session. Luna, however, was full of energy, happily putting away her new things. "Owner, I ironed all your dress shirts," she announced, emerging from his bedroom. Ethan shot up. "You went to my room? I had to get the laundry," she said, her lip trembling. "You sound angry, owner." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not angry. It's just..." Objective 3. Massage the target's shoulders for at least 5 minutes. Reward, plus 20 affinity points. The new objective made Luna's eyes sparkle. "You must be tired," she said, suddenly appearing behind the sofa. "Let me give you a massage." Before Ethan could refuse, her fingers were on his shoulders. Surprisingly, she was good. Her hands worked expertly, kneading the tension out of his stiff muscles. A soft groan escaped his lips. "Feel good," Luna whispered, leaning close to his ear. Her warm breath tickled his skin. A shiver went down Ethan's spine. It's okay. You're so cute, owner. Your ears are all red." Luna giggled, her fingers continuing their magic on his neck and shoulders. 5 minutes later, the system announced, Objective 3 complete. Affinity plus 20. Current affinity, 45 out of 100. Ethan definitely felt more relaxed, but what worried him more was that he was starting to enjoy being taken care of by this Catgirl. This wasn't right. She was a complete stranger. "I'm going to take a shower," Ethan announced, bolting from the couch and escaping into the bathroom. He splashed cold water on his face, trying to clear his head. "Get a grip, Cole," he muttered to his reflection. "You're a rational adult. Don't lose your head just because she's cute." But when he came out of the bathroom and saw Luna curled up asleep on the sofa, his heart melted all over again. She looked even more like a cat when she slept, her body curled into a ball, her tail wrapped around her waist. She looked so soft and harmless. Ethan quietly draped a blanket over her, but his hand accidentally brushed her tail. In her sleep, Luna purred and nuzzled against his hand. In that moment, Ethan felt something shift deep inside his chest. #8 the next morning, Ethan woke to a tickling sensation on his face. He opened his eyes to find Luna gently brushing his nose with the tip of her tail. "Good morning, owner," she chirped, leaning over him. "I made breakfast." "Why are you in my bed again?" he yelped, sitting bolt upright. "I wanted to surprise you," she said, tilting her head. "And you were so sweet last night, covering me with a blanket." Ethan noticed she was wearing one of the new pajama sets they'd bought, a cute one with little fish on it, but the neckline was a bit low. "Out. I need to get dressed." He ushered her out of the room, his face burning. At the breakfast table, Ethan tried to be serious. "Luna, we need to talk." "You called me Luna," she exclaimed, her tail wagging furiously. "You usually use my full name." Ethan paused, realizing he'd done it without thinking. He cleared his throat. "Listen, you can't keep being so familiar. We've only known each other for 2 days. But on Felinia, once we choose an owner, it's for life," Luna said, her expression suddenly serious. She looked him straight in the eye. "I genuinely want to stay with you." Ethan was floored by her directness. You don't even know me. What if I was a bad person?" "You're a good person," she said firmly. "You stopped in the rain for a stray cat. You dried her off and worried she was hurt. An owner like that is worth devoting a lifetime to." Ethan was speechless. He took a long sip of his coffee to hide his blush. Affinity plus 10. Current affinity. 55 out of 100. The system prompt made Luna want to do a backflip. Over the next few days, Luna integrated herself into Ethan's life with astonishing speed. She packed him a bento box for lunch every day, texted him reminders to take breaks from work, and even helped him debug some code, claiming it was just cat-like intuition. And Ethan, for his part, got used to having a Catgirl around. Sometimes, coming home late to a lit apartment and awaiting Luna, he felt a warmth he hadn't realized he was missing. Hashtag, 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 9 the piece was shattered on the 5th day. Ethan was in the shower when he heard a loud crash from the living room. He quickly threw on a robe and rushed out to find Luna holding his phone, a shattered coffee mug on the floor at her feet. "What happened?" he asked. Luna looked up, her eyes glowing strangely in the dim light. "Owner, why are you talking to another woman?" Ethan saw she was looking at a Slack conversation with a female colleague. He reached for his phone. "That's work stuff." Luna stepped back, her tail bristling like a bottle brush. "She called you F, and she used a heart emoji." Her voice trembled with a dangerous edge. "You're my owner. You can only be mine." It was the first time Ethan had seen this side of Luna. Her pupils were narrowed to slits, her nails had unconsciously extended into claws, and she radiated an aura of pure menace. He suddenly remembered something she'd said offhandedly. A clingy, possessive type? "Oh, you mean a Yandere? That's a super common personality trait for my species." He thought she was joking. He now realized she wasn't. "Luna, give me the phone," he said, keeping his voice calm. She stared at him for a long moment. Then her thumbs started flying across the screen. By the time Ethan lunged for it, it was too late. She had deleted his entire chat history with every female contact. "They are all better," she said, handing the phone back with a satisfied smile. "You only need to look at me, owner." Ethan was shocked and furious. "Do you have any idea how important some of those conversations were? I had project specs in there." Luna's smile vanished, her ears drooping. "Owner, you're angry." "Of course I'm angry," he snapped. "That's my privacy. You can't just go through my phone and delete things." Luna's tail wrapped tightly around her legs, and her voice was thick with tears. But they all want you. I could smell their jealousy. That doesn't give you the right." Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to be alone right now." He turned and walked into his bedroom, locking the door behind him. Through the door, he could hear Luna's soft sobs, and each one felt like a knife in his heart. But he forced himself not to give in. This behavior had to stop. Hashtag, 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 10 warning. Warning. Affinity has dropped by 30 points. Current affinity. 25 out of 100. The system's alarm blared in Luna's head, making her feel like she'd been plunged into ice water. She sank to the floor outside his door, tears streaming down her face. "Owner, I'm so sorry. I was just so scared of losing you." Inside, Ethan leaned against the door, listening to her cry, his fists clenching and unclenching. You should be furious. So why did hearing her sobs hurt so much? Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag 11. Ethan paced his room, the sound of Luna's quiet weeping a constant, painful thread pulling at his heart. He checked his phone for the damage. Key conversations with his project manager were gone. He had a client meeting tomorrow. Damn it. He rubbed his temples, but the image of Luna's tear-streaked face kept flashing in his mind. The clock on his wall read 1:00 a.m. The crying outside had stopped, replaced by the faint sound of steady breathing. Ethan quietly cracked the door open. Luna was curled up asleep on the floor, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. Her tail was wrapped tightly around her body, making her look like a small, abandoned animal. His heart clenched. He tiptoed out and crouched beside her. After a moment's hesitation, he gently wiped the tears from her face. In her sleep, she nuzzled his hand, letting out a faint, sleepy meow. "You idiot," he whispered. He carefully scooped her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, curling into a ball against his chest. He carried her to the guest room and tucked her into bed. As he turned to leave, she grabbed the hem of his shirt. "Owner, don't go," she mumbled, half asleep. Luna knows she was wrong. Ethan froze. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating her swollen eyes and twitching ears. In that moment, all his anger evaporated. "Get some sleep," he said softly, trying to pry her fingers away. "We'll talk tomorrow." But her eyes fluttered open, amber pools glowing in the dark. "Are you not mad anymore?" Ethan was silent for a moment. "I'm still mad about the data you deleted, but..." He looked at her anxious face and sighed. "But I shouldn't have yelled at you." Luna's tail gave a hopeful flick, then drooped again. "No, it was my fault. I shouldn't have touched your things." She bit her lip. "It's just, when I see other people getting close to you, it hurts right here." She took his hand and pressed it against her chest, where her heart was beating like a drum. Ethan was at a loss for words. "Actually," Luna hesitated, then decided to come clean. "I'm bound to a romance system. If I can't make you fall in love with me in a certain amount of time, I'll disappear." Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" "I know it sounds crazy," she said, sitting up, her tail twisting nervously around her wrist. "But it's true. The system gives me objectives, and completing them raises your affinity for me. Because of what I did today, the affinity dropped. A lot." She pulled up the system panel, visible only to her. Current affinity, 25 out of 100. Time remaining, 9 days, 23 hours. Ethan frowned. "So everything you've been doing, it was just for the objective." For some reason, that idea stung. "It started that way," she said, shaking her head frantically. "But not anymore. I really, truly like you, owner." She launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Even without the system, I want to be with you forever." He could smell the faint scent of vanilla in her hair. He found himself stroking her head, his fingers brushing against her soft ears. She immediately started purring. "This system, what happens if you fail?" he asked quietly. "It will erase me from existence," she whispered, her voice trembling. "So, could you please just try to like me a little bit?" She looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Seeing her so vulnerable, Ethan felt his heart twist. He sighed. "I'll try, but you can't interfere with my life like that again. Understand?" Luna nodded vigorously, her tail wagging. "I promise." And Ethan added, "Tell me what the objectives are. I'll help you." Luna's eyes lit up. "Really?" She pulled up the system screen. "The current objective is prepare dinner together with the target and feed each other a bite. Reward, plus 20 affinity points." Ethan couldn't help but smile. "That's it. It might seem simple to you," she muttered, "but for me, every objective feels like walking a tightrope." "I'll get off work early tomorrow," he heard himself say. "We'll cook together." Her reaction was more than he expected. She threw herself at him, clinging to him like a koala. "You're the best, owner. I like you so much." He awkwardly caught her, his ears burning. Hey, ground rules." Luna immediately let go, but her eyes were still sparkling. "Okay, good night, owner." She gave him a quick peck on the cheek, then dove under the covers, leaving only her wide eyes and twitching ears visible. Ethan stood frozen, the spot on his cheek tingling. He backed out of the room, closing the door behind him and leaning against the wall, taking a deep breath. "What am I doing?" He muttered to himself, but he couldn't suppress the smile spreading across his face. Hashtag 12 the next day at work. Ethan couldn't focus. He'd be writing a line of code, and Luna's teary face would pop into his head. His manager's voice during the morning stand-up sounded like Luna's soft owner. At lunch, he found himself smiling at the cat-shaped rice ball in his bento box. "Cole, you've been acting weird," his colleague Leo said, leaning over his cubicle. "You went dark on Slack last night, and today you're smiling at your food. Did you finally get a girlfriend? Ethan nearly choked on his water. No, of course not. Come on, man, Leo said, lowering his voice. That super cute cosplayer who came by on Friday. The whole department is talking. Rumor is Ethan Cole from engineering is dating a Catgirl. Ethan's face grew hot. She's not. It's complicated. Just admit it. Leo clapped him on the shoulder. By the way, Jenna from marketing said she resent you those project files. Something about your chat history getting wiped. The memory of last night's chaos returned. All right, thanks for the heads up. The second the clock hit 5, Ethan was packing his bag, leaving his coworkers staring in shock. The office workaholic was leaving on time? Hashtag 13 at Trader Joe's. Ethan carefully selected ingredients. He remembered Luna saying she loved fish, so he picked up a fresh fillet of salmon, along with some vegetables and fruit. Owner, he turned to see Luna jogging toward him. She was dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, a baseball cap hiding her ears. She looked like a normal, cute girl, except for those amber eyes that seemed to shine. What are you doing here? He asked, surprised. I wanted to help pick things out, she said, linking her arm with his. Besides, the system says shopping together increases intimacy. He didn't pull away. Well, good. I wasn't sure what kind of vegetables you liked. Luna's tail gave a happy flick under her jeans. I like whatever you buy, owner. They walked through the aisles like a normal couple. Ethan noticed Luna was fascinated by the fresh seafood counter, especially the lobster tank. I want to catch one, she whispered, her fingers flexing. Ethan chuckled. Not here, you don't. Just to poke it, she pleaded. Nope, he said firmly. But when he saw her ears droop in disappointment, he added, but I could take you fishing this weekend. Her face lit up. Really? You're the best. She bounced on her toes and aimed a kiss at his cheek, which he deftly blocked with his hand. Public place, he reminded her, blushing. Hashtag 14 back home. Ethan put on an apron and started prepping the food. Luna tried to help, clumsy but earnest. You're amazing, owner, she said, watching him expertly slice the salmon. Your knife skills are beautiful. He felt a little embarrassed by her praise. It's just basic stuff. Everything you do is amazing, she said, leaning in close. Even your sweat smells good. Ethan's hand slipped, nearly nicking his finger. Just focus on washing the vegetables. Dinner was simple but delicious. Pan-seared salmon, garlic broccoli, and a creamy corn chowder. Luna insisted on sitting next to him at the table. It's easier to feed you this way, she said, her tail swishing. Ethan sighed and allowed it. When she lifted a spoonful of soup, carefully blew on it, and held it to his lips, his heart skipped a beat. Open up, she said, her eyes wide with anticipation. He accepted the bite. It was better than he expected. Is it good? She asked nervously. Yeah, it's great. He then took the spoon, filled it, and held it out to her. You try. Luna stared at him, her eyes widening before a deep blush spread across her cheeks. She leaned forward, her lips tentatively touching the spoon, her gaze locked on his the entire time. Objective complete. Affinity plus 20. Current affinity. 45 out of 100. The system alert chimed, but Luna barely noticed. The fact that her owner had fed her was enough to make her bubble over with happiness. Hashtag 15 later that night. Ethan was working in his home office when Luna came in with a mug of hot chocolate. For my hard-working owner, she said, placing it on his desk. She then sat on the rug beside his chair. I'll just stay here quietly. I won't bother you. He wanted to say he didn't need a chaperone, but looking at her curled up on the floor, the words that came out were, don't sit on the floor. It's cold. Her eyes lit up. She immediately scooted over and leaned against his leg. This is much warmer. Ethan shook his head, but didn't push her away. The only sounds in the room were the clicking of his keyboard and Luna's soft, rumbling purr. It was strangely peaceful. Their life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Luna would make breakfast, and he'd drop her off at the library or a coffee shop where she was devouring books about human culture. In the evenings, they cooked and watched movies. The affinity points ticked steadily upward. Target was comforted by the host during a scary movie. Affinity plus 10, shared an umbrella in the rain. Affinity plus 5, host took care of the target all night during a fever. Affinity plus 15, hashtag 16 on the 7th day. Ethan came home to find the small succulent on his desk gone, replaced by a bouquet of red roses. The card read, "Owner is only allowed to receive flowers from me. Today's Luna." He chuckled, about to call her out on it when his phone rang. "Owner, it was Luna," her voice thick and stuffy. I think I have a cold." Ethan's playful mood vanished. "Is it bad? Did you take anything?" "I did, but I'm so dizzy." Her voice was faint. "Can you come home early?" He immediately requested the rest of the day off. On his way home, he picked up some cold medicine and a pint of her favorite salted caramel ice cream. He found her curled up in his bed, wrapped in his comforter, her cheeks flushed. She weakly opened her eyes when she heard him come in. "Owner." He rushed to her side and pressed his hand to her forehead. It was burning up. "You have a fever. Why didn't you say so?" he asked, his voice tight with a worry that surprised even him. "Didn't want to bother you at work." She mumbled, but a small smile played on her lips. Her tail gave a weak wag under the covers. He got a thermometer and a cool washcloth. Her temperature was 102.5. "That's it. We'll go to urgent care." "No," she grabbed his wrist. "They'll do tests. They'll find out I'm not human. Please, owner, I'll be fine." Felinian physiology is different. Looking into her pleading eyes, he relented. "Fine, we'll try the medicine, but if your fever isn't down by tonight, we're going." "Deal." She nodded. As he gently wiped her face and neck with the cool cloth, she let out a sigh of relief. "My ears, she murmured. He carefully dabbed the cloth on her hot, fuzzy ears, noticing how sensitive they were. "You're so gentle, owner," she whispered, her eyes half closed. "I like you so much." His hand paused. "You're delirious. Stop talking nonsense." "But it's true." Her voice faded. "How much? Do you like me now?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at her face, so vulnerable in her sickness, and realized that this baffling, infuriating, adorable cat girl had quietly carved out a huge space in his heart. "Just focus on getting better," he said softly. "And then I'll tell you." A weak smile touched her lips. "Then I have to get better right away." By evening, her fever had broken. She tried to get up to make dinner and was promptly ordered back to bed. "I'm on duty tonight," he said, bringing her a bowl of chicken soup. "It's not as good as yours, but..." She took it, her eyes never leaving his face as she ate. "What?" he asked, feeling self-conscious. "You were worried about me," she said, her eyes crinkling in a happy smile. "It makes me so happy." He just shook his head. "Happy to be sick. Happy to be cared for by you." She finished the soup, set the bowl aside, and wrapped her arms around him. "You smell like safety." He stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, hugging her back. "Don't get a chill." She nuzzled against him, then remembered. "Oh, today's objective. We haven't done it." She pulled up the system panel. "Exchange a personal token with the target. Reward, plus 25 affinity points." "A token, something meaningful," she explained. She reached up and unclasped a thin silver chain from her neck. On it was a small, polished piece of amber. "This is the only thing I brought with me from Felinia. I want you to have it." Ethan took the necklace. The amber was warm to the touch, and inside, a tiny black feather was suspended. "Luna, this is too important. I can't." "Please take it," she insisted. "It means that all of me belongs to you now." She looked at him expectantly. "Now you have to give me something." Ethan thought for a moment, then pulled out his wallet. He took out an old, worn silver dollar. "This was my grandfather's lucky coin. I've carried it with me since he passed." He felt a little sheepish. "It's not as valuable as yours." Luna took it like it was a holy relic, pressing it to her chest. "You're giving me something this important." Her eyes were shining. "I'll treasure it forever." Objective complete. Affinity plus 25. Current affinity. 85 out of 100. Ethan helped fasten the amber necklace around his own neck, and she insisted on tucking the silver dollar securely into a small pocket in her new pajamas. "Now you'll always carry my scent with you," she said, satisfied, reaching out to touch the amber resting against his collarbone. ###17. The touch of her fingertips against his skin made them both freeze. Luna looked up into his eyes and saw an intensity she'd never seen before. The air in the room grew thick. Her heart began to pound, and her ears twitched uncontrollably. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She could only watch as Ethan's face slowly drew closer. The doorbell rang, shattering the moment. The food delivery is here. Luna squeaked, jumping up and running to the door. Ethan took a deep breath, touching his own burning ears. For a second there, he had actually been about to kiss her. The realization sent his heart into overdrive. Hashtag 18. It was the last day. The system panel glowed in front of Luna, the red countdown clock mocking her. Time remaining. 11 hours, 59 minutes. Final objective. Achieve biological union with the target. Reward. Permanent existence in this world. Penalty for failure. Erasure. Luna. Ethan turned from the stove, a plate of pancakes in his hand. What's wrong? She quickly dismissed the panel. Nothing. The pancakes smell amazing. He set the plate down and reached out to stroke her ears, a gesture that had become second nature. You look pale. Just a bad dream, she lied, taking the mug of coffee he offered. The warmth did nothing to stop the chill in her fingers. For months, she had completed every task, from sharing meals to sharing kisses. The affinity was at 99 out of 100. She was one step away, but how could she possibly bring it up? Hey, owner, we need to have sex or I'm going to die. Any plans for the weekend? Ethan asked, sitting across from her. The collar of his shirt was open, revealing the amber pendant she'd given him. The sight made her heart ache. If she failed, she'd never see him wear it again. I just want to be with you, she whispered. Ethan studied her for a moment, then said, There's supposed to be a meteor shower tonight. The rooftop of my office building has the best view. Want to go? The tip of her tail twitched. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. He reached across the table and wiped a fleck of whipped cream from the corner of her mouth, his thumb lingering for a second too long. A jolt went through her. The system panel flashed. Affinity fluctuation. Current, 99. 5 out of 100. Hashtag 19. The day passed in a blur of anxiety for Luna. She watched Ethan work, watched the way his fingers flew across the keyboard, watched the column of his throat move when he drank water. Every detail was a reminder of the time she had left. As evening approached, she took a bath and put on the white sundress Ethan had said he liked. I'm ready, owner, she called, padding to the front door. Ethan was waiting, dressed in a casual blazer, his hair still damp from the shower. He froze for a second when he saw her. You look beautiful, he said, his voice a little rough. She took his hand, drawing strength from his warmth. The company's rooftop had been transformed. Fairy lights were strung along the railings, and a large blanket was spread out in the center, complete with a bottle of Prosecco chilling in an ice bucket. When did you? While you were napping, he said, leading her to the blanket. He poured them both a glass. The first meteor streaked across the sky, a brilliant slash of light against the velvet black. Owner, look, Luna gasped, grabbing his arm. Make a wish, he said, his eyes fixed on her face, not the sky. Luna squeezed her eyes shut. Please let me stay with my owner forever. When she opened them, he was still watching her, his gaze so intense it made her heart flutter. Luna, he began, his voice serious. Your system. The deadline is soon, isn't it? The Prosecco suddenly felt like ice in her veins. How did you know? You're always staring at thin air, and your fingers make these little swiping motions. And he moved closer. I figured out the affinity part a while ago. Her tail bushed out. You knew. Not everything, he admitted, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. For example, what's the final objective? The question made Luna choke. She looked down, her hands twisting the fabric of her dress. Is it this? Ethan pulled out his phone. On the screen was a document titled, Yandere Catgirl Romance System. Full objective list. Luna's jaw dropped. How did you get that? Your system sent it to me last month, he said with a sly grin. So, you've known all along. She wanted to sink through the floor, but he tilted her face up to meet his. I knew you were trying to repay a debt. I knew the system was forcing your hand, he said, his thumb stroking her cheek. But I want you to know, it wasn't about the objectives. I wanted to do all those things with you anyway. Her heart stopped. I fell in love with you a long time ago, Luna, he whispered, his voice clear and true in the night air. Probably the first time you wrapped your tail around my wrist. The system panel exploded in a shower of golden light in her mind. Affinity breakthrough. 100 out of 100. Final objective unlocked. But she wasn't looking at it. All she could see was Ethan, leaning in, his lips gently capturing hers. Hashtag 20. When they finally broke apart, breathless and dizzy, Luna realized her tail had wound itself tightly around Ethan's arm. "Should we go home?" he murmured against her forehead. She nodded, her cheeks burning. Ethan saw the final objective flash on her system panel before it vanished. He chuckled, taking her hand and tucking it into his pocket. "Let's go home and complete the mission." The apartment door had barely clicked shut behind them when he pulled her into his arms, his lips finding the sensitive spot just behind her ear. "Nervous? Not with you," she whispered, standing on her toes to kiss the corner of his mouth. In the bedroom, moonlight streamed through the sheer curtains. Ethan draped one of his own button-down shirts over her shoulders. "How about this?" When she nodded shyly, he turned to face the window. "I won't look. Tell me when you're ready." A moment later, a pair of cool hands wrapped around his waist from behind. He turned. The shirt came down to her mid-thigh, her long legs looking even more delicate. "It fits perfectly," he said softly. She took his hand and guided it to the top of her head, to her sensitive ears. "If you touch me here, I think I can be brave." That night was a slow, gentle discovery. When he finally held her, their hearts beating in unison, the sounds of the city outside seemed a world away. Final objective complete. The system's voice chimed, softer this time. Luna watched as the last remnants of the translucent panel dissolved into the moonlight. A tear slid down her cheek. "Hey, what's wrong?" Ethan whispered, wiping it away. She pressed his hand to her cheek. "The system is gone now. Will you still like me?" His answer was a soft kiss on her forehead and the glint of 2 matching silver rings he'd placed on the nightstand, waiting for morning. Hashtag epilogue. 3 months later, Luna was curled up in Ethan's arms, her tail wrapped around his wrist. He woke first, smiling as he watched her sleep. He leaned down and kissed the tip of her ear. She purred, snuggling deeper. His phone buzzed. It was a Slack message from Jenna in marketing. As he started to type a reply, a hand shot out and pressed down on the screen. "No work," Luna mumbled, one eye open, her tail tightening its grip. "The weekend is my time." Ethan laughed, putting the phone down and scratching her under the chin. "You're so possessive." She rolled on top of him, her pajama top gaping. "You promised to take me to the arcade today." I remember, he said, his hands finding their way to her waist. "We'll go this afternoon. This morning. We have other things to do." Her ears perked up and her tail began to swish happily. "Owner, you're becoming a bad influence." "I learned from the best," he said, and rolled her under him, capturing her lips in a deep kiss. Later, as she was getting dressed, Ethan slipped a silver ring onto her finger. It was inlaid with a small chip of amber, a perfect match for the pendant he wore. "Now you're officially my Catgirl," he said. She looked at the ring, then tackled him back onto the bed. "I always was, owner." Sunlight streamed into the room, bathing them in a golden glow. On some distant planet, there might be other Catgirls with other missions. But here, in this small Seattle apartment, Luna had only one objective left: to love her owner for the rest of her life. And Ethan was more than happy to be conquered.